Hi everyone, my name is Emanuela Azu. I'm a lawyer, a feminist and a gender expert. On this module, we will be discussing community organizing and advocacy. At the end of this module, participants are expected to understand what advocacy is, know the characteristics, attributes of advocacy. What is community organizing? We need to know what community organizing is, and the effective advocacy, lobbying and campaign strategies, advocacy steps, the issues in advocacy, the benefits of new media as a platform for engagement, the purpose of community organizing and advocacy, and then the myth about community advocacy. And then we'll look at the types of advocacy, the advocacy work, and what advocacy can do, what we can actually achieve with advocacy. What is advocacy? Advocacy is picking up, drawing a community's attention to an important issue, and directing decision makers towards a solution. Advocacy is a series of actions directed at changing the policies, positions, or programs of any type of institution, be it at the local, national, or international level. Advocacy involves working with other people, working with other organizations to make a difference. Advocacy is not one single action, but a combination of a number of actions and events put together in a sequenced plan. So how do we know that what we are doing or what we are engaged in is an advocacy? Advocacy is a process. Advocacy involves influencing issues, policies, laws, rules, and so on. Advocacy takes time. Advocacy has a target. Advocacy can also take place at different levels. Advocacy can take place at any time and at any place. You could be in a public space and you could also advocate for an issue. So you don't have to be in a very set place, in a defined place, or in a particular manner, or for you to be able to advocate for an issue. For us to have an effective advocacy strategy, advocacy must be based on the aims of the organization and must have clear goals. Advocacy campaign must be well researched and properly planned. Each phase and action must have the human and financial resources needed to succeed. Certain steps will need to be taken in determining an advocacy strategy and plan. These steps are what I refer to as the first steps. First, problem analysis. What is the problem or the issue? Second, what are the goals and objectives? What are we trying to achieve? And next, we determine the stakeholders. Who are our target audience? Who are we speaking to? And then the next step is the messaging. What do the target audience need to hear for our advocacy to be effective? And then the next thing is your tactics. How can you get them to hear it? Which medium of engagement? Do you want to engage them via WhatsApp messages, via radio programs, via town hall meetings, one-on-one communication, phone calls? You need to identify. So what resources do you have? What advantage, what resources do you have? You also need to strategize and map out what advantages and resources that you have. And then finally, you always have to assess. How do you assess whether it is working? You always need to assess. Is your advocacy strategy working? Are your plans working? Are your key messages being delivered? Are they listening? Is it making any impact? And so these are all very important steps that you must always consider in advocacy. Myths about advocacy. Advocacy is only for professional lobbyists. So a lot of people imagine and assumed that advocacy is meant for a particular group of people and has to be done in a particular way. A lot of people also assume or imagine that advocacy is walking down the street with a speaker, advocating or rioting or demonstrating or taking part in a rally. This myth mixes different concepts because there are different concepts. There's rally, there's activism, which are sometimes useful advocacy tools, but they are not solely and basically what advocacy is all about. Then advocacy is the same as fundraising or donating in a charity. Advocacy is not fundraising, it's not donating in a charity. Advocacy is all about changing mindsets, perceptions, and all of that. It's not about fundraising or when you say you are doing an advocacy and you are donating to a particular charity. Advocacy is really about social change, initiating social change. Also, a lot of people imagine and think that advocacy consumes a lot of time. And we hear things like, oh, I am too busy to get involved in advocacy. Advocacy doesn't have to be complicated and time-consuming. Advocacy is all about politics. It's a negative connotation about advocacy. Yes, advocacy can be political. That is when you advocate for a specific piece of legislation, but it is more often socially and intellectually focused on speaking out on behalf of those without a voice. So basically, advocacy is when it is intentional, speaking for those without a voice, and you intend to achieve social change. That's basically what advocacy is, and not the very many myths around advocacy.